Why might you be gaining weight on a keto or a carnivore diet? Hi, I'm Dr. Eric Westman, and welcome to my channel where I review and debunk nutritional misinformation online. In this video, we're going to hear from Laura Spath. Now, I've interviewed her, I've met her, and like the content that she gives generally. It's not only her own experience, but the experience of other people that she's coached using a carnivore diet, meaning a keto diet, but without any vegetable matter. It's all animal based. And she's going to give some ideas if you've gained weight or you're not losing weight on a keto or carnivore diet. This will be very interesting for you. Be sure to wait till the end of the video where I give my final thoughts. YouTube has actually told me that 45% of people who watch this video, you may be one of them, are not subscribed to the channel. If you like this, if it's your first time or multiple times, please subscribe. It really helps us to get more content out to people.
The question of gaining weight on a carnivore diet comes up frequently. It's something that a lot of people are afraid of. It might prevent them from even starting, or you may initially lose weight, but after a while you start gaining weight again. It can happen for a number of reasons, and no matter how experienced you are, it can happen to the best of us. It certainly has happened to me on and off over the last 6 years. If you are gaining weight on a carnivore diet, it is likely happening for one of 3 major reasons. And that's what I'm going to break down for you in this video today.
So I would listen carefully. I'm aware of Laura's source of information and she has information from lots of people that she's taught. You also want to make sure that you realize she's not a physician. Came to it from a marketing background, I believe, business background. But she's a great communicator as a result of that. And let's see what she says. The top 3 things that might make it so that you gain weight on a keto or carnivore diet. I'm going to add keto in there as well in case you're not doing a strict carnivore diet, just so you know that it applies there as well. Before we jump into today's video, I want to invite you to join my free course, Start Keto Right. If you're ready to lose weight, boost your energy, and really get results, this science-backed approach will guide you every step of the way. No guesswork, just a proven method to help you succeed on keto faster and feel amazing. Sign up now through the link in the description.
When you first start a carnivore diet, the expectation to lose a lot of weight very fast is high. You see before and after pictures online, stories like myself, where I started a carnivore diet and lost weight very quickly at first. Part of that is because I was coming from such a terrible diet, fast food, gas station food, casseroles, a lot of ice cream, and I went to a keto and carnivore diet and I lost weight very quickly. But there are people in other circumstances who are restricting. They've come from a history of yo-yo dieting. They're undernourished, and so they might see a little bump up in their weight at first when they start a carnivore diet as their body absorbs all of those nutrients and establishes a new baseline before they start losing weight again. After that initial bump up before you lose weight, there are 3 major factors that could be contributing to you gaining weight or not losing weight.
So I think that's a good point, that it may take a little time to adjust. Also, you might go through a keto adaptation sort of a symptom cluster of headache, fatigue, and depending on what kind of diet you came from, you may have more or less of those symptoms. And so being patient at first, I think, is really important. And having success at first is pretty uniform. There might be some water loss because you've been holding on to water excessively from the extra carbohydrates. You might be losing salt. And that's why we ask people to have salt replacement during the first few weeks, even if you're not used to having salt, because it just holds the water and salt better while you're going through this adaptation phase. One thing she doesn't talk about, if you're a patient in a clinic, if you're my patient, for example, and you're on a blood pressure medicine or a diuretic medicine, or you have kidney failure or heart failure or liver failure where sodium becomes an issue, then you don't want to be adding salt like we're mentioning. And the clinical context. If you're new to this, you are on medications, you see a doctor for different reasons, then you want to be sure to do this with a doctor. This is prescription strength diet change we're talking about.
The first factor I want to talk about is consistency, and that might look different. It could be consistency in the sense that you're eating very strict all throughout the week, but on the weekends you get a little more loose, you have some drinks or alcohol or carbs in a restaurant, and you let it slip and you go off track over the weekend.
Yeah, we didn't call that consistency. That's an interesting word today. We call it cheating or carb creep, meaning you're really not following it strictly, or strictness is the level. So consistent means you got to do it every day. This is pretty true for most people who come to use this approach as a corrective or therapeutic kind of dietary approach. Just be strict every day. There are a few books out there and strategies and the psychology where they say, just do it for 29 days. And then on that 30th day, you can have whatever you want. Of course, by the 30th day, you've had so many changes and successes that most people don't want to eat carbs again on the 30th day. So just choose a period of time where you're going to be strict. We call it carb creep in the keto world. Here, we'll call it consistency. So just be consistent.
But then you get back on track again during the week. This is not one of those diets that works well when you're like 90% in, because your body is eating high fat and it's burning fat for fuel. So every time you go off track and you have a bunch of carbs or sugar or even alcohol, your body has to then take time to process all of those things out and then go back to burning fat. So having that cheat once a week or on the weekends might not seem like a big deal in the sense of your week. However, it is really slowing down your weight loss or even causing you to gain weight because your body is going back and forth between fat burning mode and carb burning mode.
Yeah, we did an investigation. It was a small pilot study, but we took people who were in ketosis and we fed them, let them choose a meal that had carbohydrate. And then we followed them with ketosis measurements, the breath, the blood, and the urine. And we waited and monitored to see how long it took. So they're in ketosis, they have one meal with carbs, and then everyone went out of ketosis. The ketones drop when you eat carbohydrates. And then it took two people 2 weeks to get back into ketosis. So if you're someone who is having trouble, you're very resistant, it's not working, be super strict. This idea of consistency, even one little bit of carb along the way, once every 2 weeks, would have stopped these people from having success on a keto diet, which is similar to the carnivore diet. So be consistent, be strict.
And that can take several days to flip that switch back and forth.
Maybe even 2 weeks.
Another piece of that consistency could just look like you eating meat and fruit. The meat and fruit crew on the internet is a very popular group of people, but they tend to be very active, fit, metabolically healthy, and they're burning off that fruit that they're eating very quickly because of their high metabolism and their extreme energy level. So they eat a bunch of fruit, they may do some crazy exercise, burn that off, and then their body is burning off that fat. So if you can moderate fruit, you know I have no problems with you eating fruit, especially if you have a great metabolism, you are really active, there probably is no major setbacks and you wouldn't see any weight gain from incorporating some fruit. But if you have insulin resistance, a high blood sugar, or a lot of weight to lose, eating meat plus fruit is going to be a very quick way to gaining weight, or it's at least going to prevent you from losing weight.
So that's an example of considering the context. If you're otherwise healthy, active, you come to this way of eating out of curiosity, or you just want to try it, you may not have to be as strict. But if you're coming to this as a therapeutic tool, you're reversing diabetes, you have a lot of weight to lose, you're on medications for diabetes, high blood pressure, heart failure, all these other things, then you want to be super strict and not add in these other things like fruit. So consider the context. There are a lot of different keto and carnivore versions being taught out there. And if it's a clinical version you want, be sure to learn from doctors and dietitians and nutritionists who've been in that clinical setting, not just teaching people who are young and at the gym, because there's a difference in how strict you have to be.
The next reason that I want to talk about is really two sides to the same coin, and that's overeating and undereating. You would think that overeating would be a lot more common, but surprisingly, it's pretty difficult just to eat and eat and eat and eat way too much meat all day long. It's not impossible, but it's not usually the main reason as to why you're gaining weight.
So this is a very important difference in the contexts. So in my clinic, most people are not exercising. Most people ask the diet to do everything. And so here I'm going to be differing with, so in the general teaching online, you have a much different group of people, a cohort who might be super active, but I'll come to the point where I'll talk about calories and whether you should be eating more or less. And people come to my office saying, well, the internet says I should eat more. Well, let's hear about that context. It's different than the clinical context.
I think overeating usually comes in the form of too much dairy, too many processed meats. You're snacking all day long. You're not getting these like big substantial meals, but you're having cheese and pepperonis and too much heavy cream all throughout the day. And that tends to end up being too many calories, just not enough fasting, and too many processed meats in general.
Yeah, so too many calories can make you gain weight, for sure. And the science around that is actually pretty sparse, but there are a few people who have overconsumed a zero carb type of diet, showing that they can gain weight, but they do have to eat a lot of calories, especially if they're active. They can be burning off these calories as heat. So the idea that you can gain weight by overeating calories on a keto and carnivore diet makes sense, right?
The other more common issue is undereating. Now that's one of the good things about a carnivore diet, is that the food is so satisfying that you're usually not in this ravenously hungry state all the time. And so you are able to eat less, which could contribute to weight loss.
So here's where I'm learning and would love to see more. So here is where I'm learning from people who use keto and carnivore on the internet. It's a different clinical context. I've never told someone to eat more when they're trying to lose weight. So here is where that idea that the internet says you should eat more to lose weight, which doesn't make sense to me, but let's hear the argument.
But the problem is, when you are in a calorie deficit for a long period of time, your metabolism and your hormones are going to down-regulate in order to match the amount of calories that you are giving your body. When this happens, you're lowering that basal metabolic rate, and weight loss is going to come to a screeching halt, and you may even start gaining weight because your body is in this starvation mode.
So you understand that? So that the body does adjust to lower down the metabolism in response to weight loss. Pretty good recent studies on this, where the diet, even the diet you choose to lose weight, has a different amount of reduction in your metabolic rate, so that there's less of a reduction in the metabolic rate if you eat a low carb diet compared to a higher carb, low calorie diet. But everyone will get that reduction in metabolic rate. However, where I disagree is the idea that you then can't lose weight. You can. Your body will not go down to a zero metabolism, zero metabolic rate. It's burning energy just because you're alive, even if you're not exerting yourself. But where this gets a little bit confusing is if you're in an ad lib, meaning you can eat as much food as you want, and you're not controlling calories, it's very difficult for you to eat under that metabolic rate in an ad lib sort of way, so that a lot of people will end up eating less, the metabolic rate goes down, and they say, I'm stuck. Well, if you come to a weight loss doctor like me, we would advise go even lower on the calories, take a shot, take a pill that makes you eat lower on the calories so that you go down and compensate for your body's metabolic rate adjustment. It works, clearly. I mean, you can go and have weight loss surgery where the calories are brought down to 0 for a while and are ultra low. So I'm not saying one is better than another, but in a clinical context, we often just reduce the calories even further to account for that adjustment in metabolic rate if you're in a clinical setting.
And over time, you might all of a sudden find your cravings are increasing because you're really undernourishing your body and your body is really searching for something. So you'll notice that people start having cravings after a while of undereating, which then can go back to the consistency problem. And next thing you know, you're hungry and you're gaining weight. While tracking every day isn't necessary and calories aren't the best measurement tool, it is kind of the only one we've got. And so it is important for you to check in occasionally and just make sure you're not eating 800, 1,000, 1,200 calories. Use a calculator. I can link one down below. And just something that's gonna help you to, based on your activity level, keep your calories up high enough so that your body is nourished, your hormones are functioning properly, you're maintaining muscle mass, which is then going to lead to you losing weight more quickly.
Did you hear that? Based on your activity level. So most people come to me, they're not doing any activity at all. The knee pain is so bad, the back pain, and that's okay. So if you're in a clinical setting, you're just using the food, then I don't tell people to eat more. I tell people to eat less. If you're out and about, you're active, you're trying to stay active, you're trying to run, marathons or even 5Ks all the time, and you don't feel like you have the energy, then you need to eat more to maintain what you're trying to do. In the context of 0 extra metabolic use of your body, the exertion, then you want to eat less and have fewer calories. It would be very interesting to see, this approach where you actually gradually eat more to get your metabolic rate up, and then you start losing, to see that tested in these two different contexts, because it doesn't make sense to me if you're not doing any kind of exertion for you to then eat more, and that's the treatment of the low metabolic rate, is that you eat more. So this is a great example of how you can get confused by internet teaching that works in some contexts but doesn't work in another. And of course, at the end of the day, if you're not getting results from the teaching, then you want to switch to something else.
There also are huge factors like sleep and stress and exercise, whether you're over-exercising or under-exercising or not getting great sleep, and just stress in general. I have been through seasons in the last 6 years where I'm doing everything right with the diet, but my corporate job or my outside factors are just adding so much stress. My sleep is suffering, my hormones are suffering, and the next thing you know, I am just doing the same thing, but I'm gaining weight and I can't figure out why. You have to take a step back and say, what is my sleep like? Are there stressful things that are happening in my life that I need to work on? Am I prioritizing things like rest and mindfulness enough to make a difference in removing those factors?
Yeah, well said. And often the carnivore harder, you are having carnivore police or keto police. It must be that you're having that micro bit of maltodextrin, and please, the idea that these other factors are important is huge. The sleep, the stress levels, considering even just family issues that arise can explain changes that you can't explain just by the diet alone. Although I do talk about habit eating as well. Are you dropping meals? Is it possible for you to intermittent fast? It's kind of behavioral changes. I do a quick scan in the office with somebody about the home life. Is the spouse kind of a saboteur or not being supportive in ways, or even passive aggressive? That can be an issue as well. But so think about the things other than the diet to be contributors, other medications. Great point.
And lastly, carnivore is not going to fix your relationship with food. There are a lot of us who have improvement in cravings, and we feel a lot better eating a carnivore diet, which really helps us in terms of our relationship with food. But it's not a magic pill. You still have to get to the root issue of why am I snacking? Why am I binging? Why am I reaching for other things? Why am I eating emotionally? This is a huge part of, like, I've gone through seasons of weight gain with carnivore, and it has nothing to do with the diet, and is just about my relationship with food. And I've really had to analyze, how am I comforting myself and how am I using food for my emotions? That may have nothing to do with the diet at all, but you're gonna have to address that relationship with food before you can find what a stable, long-term healthy weight is for you.
Well, I think doing carnivore or keto helps you figure out that relationship with food, and I think Laura knows that as well, but it doesn't solve it. You know, so emotional eating is so common, and the soothing effect of having foods, we've transferred a lot of our need for that onto food because it's so easily available. So thinking about this usually doesn't happen at first. Worrying about that, the initial weight loss and reversal of diabetes and enthusiasm will just keep you motivated, but later on, as you go, this is an important set of ideas, the non-dietary related factors.
There are so many benefits to a carnivore diet because the meat is so nutritious and healing for our bodies, and it really does block out a lot of the food noise that we experience, and it can be an amazing weight loss tool. But it's not a magic pill. There's so many other factors that are gonna go into finding a proper healthy weight for you, and it's important to take a look at the big picture.
Another great video that comes from experience with not only her own experience, but also helping other people. These influencers are really important in spreading the word and getting the information out now. We can't wait to train MDs and DOs and all the dietitians to know all this. We can have a lot of help from people who are teaching others, just like Laura is here. Funny, she keeps mentioning the magic pill. There is no magic pill, except there's a movie called The Magic Pill, which is a documentary film about the low-carb keto diet. So if you haven't seen that documentary called The Magic Pill, it's a good one. So maybe there is a magic pill, but it's not a pill. I like this video. I like this approach. Let me know your thoughts down below. If you like, please like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. Look for content on Wednesdays and Fridays. If you enjoyed this video, consider joining our YouTube membership for early access and exclusive live Q&As with me. Just click the join button below or support us with a PayPal in the description.